Reading section, reorder paragraphs method. Let's look at the step-by-step method to use for this question type. A quick look at the question screen. Paragraphs on the left, and they are in the wrong order. And you have to click on them, drag them, and drop them onto the right, and ensure that the order in which you drop them, or the final order, that is correct. So quite simple. And remember that the important point about scoring in this question type, you get scores on the basis of the correct pairs. So for each pair of paragraphs that is in correct order, you will get a point. And not just for having the individual paragraphs in the right order. They must be in the right order relative to each other. Or in other words, for each pair that is in correct order, you will get a point. Let's look at the method now. The first thing, quickly have a glance at all the paragraphs so you get a basic idea of what the text might be about. So just quickly maybe spend a few seconds and skim through the whole text, read all the paragraphs. I mean, I shouldn't say read all the paragraphs. I don't want you to spend that time, but just glance over all the paragraphs. Then your goal is to, the next step, the goal is to find the lead paragraph or the first paragraph of the text. And once you do that, the first paragraph is the one which usually can stand on its own, which introduces the topic. That's why it's introduced in the beginning. That's why it's written in the beginning. And that's why it's the lead paragraph. So that's a good way to find something which is independent. That is the lead paragraph. After that, you have to find the next paragraph, and focus has to be on arranging them in pairs. So look for try to put two paragraphs in the correct order. Once you've done that, try to put another two paragraphs in the correct order. That should be the focus. So always look at arranging a paragraph in relation to another paragraph. That's what's meant by arranging in pairs. And once you think you have got all the paragraphs in the correct order, then review from top to bottom. So start from the first paragraph and go to the last paragraph. What you have to check in the review, that each paragraph should have some kind of a logical relationship with its preceding paragraph and with the succeeding paragraph. So the paragraph if a paragraph came before it, then there should be a link between the two paragraphs, some logical link that you can explain. And also, if there's a paragraph after that paragraph, then again, with that paragraph also, there should be a logical link. So that's what you have to review from top to bottom. And once you are happy, you can submit and go to the next question. Now, let's look at an example. I try to arrange these in the correct order. You may pause the video for a minute or 2 minutes. The answer is, the correct order is this. So starting from, there are very few models of trade that include all 5 reasons for trade simultaneously, and so on. Let's examine step by step why this is the correct. So step number 1, as we just saw when we were looking at the method, quickly read all the paragraphs. So just have a glance. This doesn't mean economic belief, one model, one must try to understand the world by looking collection models, few models of trade, too complicated economics. So, all right. So I just read a few words from each sentence or each paragraph, and I understood that this is about economics. This is about a model of economics, something to do with that. Now, my next step is to find the lead paragraph. And the third one, after looking at the different paragraphs, I decided that the third one is the lead paragraph. Why? Because if you look at the first paragraph, this does not mean that, so you can ask, somebody will ask, what does this refer to? All right. So it means something's already been mentioned before this, and that's why in this sentence we are using this. That's why it can't be the first. Similarly, instead. So instead of what? Again, something should have been mentioned before. The fourth paragraph, the reason is that. The reason for what? So something should come before that. And the last one, economists simplify the world by choosing a model that generally contains just one reason. So a reason of what? Again, so logically, we expect something to come before that. That's why the third one is the correct option. There are very few models of trade that include all 5 reasons for trade simultaneously. So now this is an independent statement. If you tell this to somebody, they understand something and they can explain it back that, yeah, you were saying that there are only a few models of trade which include all reasons for trade at the same time. Okay. And in the subsequent paragraphs, you can talk about what those models are, what are the reasons are, etc. There's nothing that we expect to be present before this sentence. So that's why it's the lead paragraph. Now, the next step is find next paragraph that adds to the previous. Okay, so you have to find a link between the two paragraphs. So there are very few models of trade that include all 5 reasons for trade simultaneously. And the next paragraph after that is the reason is that such a model is too complicated to work with. So the reason for what? The reason for having very few models of trade that include all 5 reasons. So there's a good logical relation between them. And that's why I picked that as the next paragraph. So once you do that, you arrange them in pairs. This is a correct pair. So I just leave it there. And after that, I'll try to, in relation to these sentences. So for example, I can try to see if there's any paragraph that will come after the reason is that such paragraph, or if something will come suddenly, something won't come before there are few more models of trade, because that's the first one. So you can start with the second, the reason is that such, and try to find the next paragraph. So basically arrange these two in pairs and you'll get a point for that. So that's how you have to work. Look at the relationships between two paragraphs and get two correct at a time. Once you've done that, this is the final order that I arrived at, and the last step is to review the order. So I start with the first one. There are very few models of trade. So yeah, I know this is an independent sentence, which was our criteria for picking the lead sentence. We wanted that to be the first, that it should not depend on anything. So it means that the reason is that such a model is too complicated to work with. So the reason for what? The reason for few models of trade. And after that, it tells again that why a model with less reasons is required, because economists use that to simplify the word. And if you see, this does not mean. Now, what does this refers to? This refers to the action by economists to simplify the world by choosing a model. But that action, it does not mean that they believe that only one model is sufficient or one model is enough. So now if you review the order, you will be able to find a link between every sentence, every paragraph and the one after that, and every paragraph and the paragraph before that. And when you read from top to bottom, it will make complete sense to you. So that's how you should review the order. And again, can vary from person to person, but try not to spend more than 2 or 3 minutes on this. So this needs a lot of practice. A lot of people get this wrong. But if you follow, keep this basic rule of thumb in mind that I must always find a link. So I'm looking for a link, some explanation that why this sentence should come after this sentence. As long as you keep that logical reasoning, I think you will be able to answer these questions. And once you're happy, then just submit and go to the next question. Make sure you do a lot of practice for this particular question type, because as I said, it's challenging to get it correct in just 2 minutes or in 3 minutes. And I would say in the reading section, this is probably the one which students struggle most with. So spend a lot of time practicing with the sample questions.